So I'm back with another top 10 video, and this time I'll be ranking the top 10 strongest characters in Dragon Ball Z before the existence of Dragon Ball Super, because that does change some things. There are no gods of destruction or angels to keep out of this one. Dragon Ball Z was the first time in the franchise where we were introduced to some of the most formidable fighters in shonen history. These characters redefined what it meant to be powerful, so much so that it's a meme to say, but can he beat Goku?
Yeah, but can he beat Goku?
All of the alive characters that we saw fighting throughout Dragon Ball Z will be considered for this list. As we journey through this list, we will revisit some of the most intense and memorable battles in Dragon Ball Z history. I'll go from the epic clashes on Namek to the heart-pounding showdowns during the Cell and Buu sagas. Now with all of that out of the way, let's get right to number 10, and this spot is occupied by Android 17. Although he was present for a good chunk of an arc, Android 17 wasn't a very active antagonist. I mean, the same can be said for 18 as well, but from Android 17's limited interactions, we do know that he is head and shoulders above any Super Saiyan before Cell is introduced. He also happens to be stronger than Android 18, and his strength rivals that of Super Namekian Piccolo. Piccolo at that point in time was stronger than Imperfect Cell. 17 and Piccolo fought evenly during the Android saga before being interrupted by Cell, but I do think it's important to note that if he and Piccolo continued to fight, Piccolo would likely lose because he would run out of energy. Now at number 9, I have Goten, and at 8, I have Trunks. Now I know for some, this may be a little shocking because Goten and Trunks couldn't beat Android 18 during the Buu saga, but I'm not referring to Goten at 7 years old, I'm referring to Goten at 17 years old. I mean, I did say the strongest characters in Dragon Ball Z, and although we didn't see it for a long time, Goten did grow up in Dragon Ball Z. Unfortunately, 17-year-old Goten doesn't have any notable feats for me to go off of, but I think I can make a couple inferences. The first step is to figure out how strong he was at 7 years old, and I think both Goten and Trunks were weaker than Goku was on Namek. I've never been one that believed that every Saiyan just unlocks Super Saiyan once they get to a specific power level. Of course, they have to be strong, but I don't think Gohan was as strong as Goku when he achieved the Super Saiyan transformation, and the same goes for Goten. I just don't think Buu Saga Goten can beat full power Frieza, but after 10 years of training, I find it hard to believe that Goten and Trunks aren't at least stronger than the androids. They may not have been doing the same type of intense training like Goku or Vegeta, but we do know that these two are gifted and can grow in strength even faster than their fathers. Now I could stretch and say that they mastered the Super Saiyan form in 10 years, which to me is totally reasonable given that Goku and Gohan did it in under a year, but even if they didn't, based on training and natural growth alone, I think that these two are stronger than Android 17. At number 7 is Piccolo. For all of Dragon Ball Z, Piccolo was one of the strongest Z fighters, but there were a few moments where Piccolo was the absolute strongest. The first time was during the Saiyan invasion before Goku back to Earth, and then you have that time on Namek after he fused with Nil, and then during the Android saga, Piccolo becomes whole again by fusing with Kami to become a Super Namekian. And in each of these situations, Piccolo would be the strongest by a wide margin, but after the Cell games, those big jumps in power stopped. We do know that Piccolo does consistently train in some way like Goku and Vegeta, but they grow much faster than he does. I mean, at the end of the day, he's not a Saiyan. We already know that he was equal to Android 17, and after 7 years of training, which does include the hyperbolic time chamber, I think it is well within reason to assume that Piccolo by the end of Z would easily beat the androids and have a slight edge over Goten and Trunks, but not Future Trunks, who I have at number 6. He is the first character in Dragon Ball to be introduced as a Super Saiyan, and like the other half Saiyans in this series, he grew in strength rather quickly. Before stepping foot in the hyperbolic time chamber, it is safe to assume that Future Trunks was about as strong as Super Saiyan Vegeta and Super Saiyan Goku without the heart virus. But after training with Vegeta, Trunks was as strong as Cell in his perfect form if we're talking about just pure power. Now if you know the story, then you're aware that because of a lack of speed, Future Trunks could not beat Cell, but off strength alone, he did have the advantage. Where we really see Future Trunks' power on display is after Gohan defeats Cell in the main timeline, and Trunks goes back to his timeline and defeats 17 and 18 easily, then he defeats Imperfect Cell easily as well. Now I could end his growth there, but by the end of Dragon Ball Z, time has passed for Future Trunks as well, and with all of that time to train, I think he's easily stronger than Piccolo. Now for this 5th spot, I won't lie, I made a lot of guesses, but just stay with me. At number 5, I have Oob. What we know for a fact is that he fought Goku and Goku tried. Now the answer to how hard Goku was trying is unknown. It looked like Goku was giving it some real effort, but he didn't even transform and he didn't take any real damage either. Me placing Buu here at 5 is me saying that I think he could beat Piccolo and Future Trunks in an all-out fight. I don't know if he'd win the fight by a lot or if it would be a close match, but I do think in the end Oob will win. But I think he loses to his counterpart in Majin Buu. Now, because this list is only including characters alive at the end of Dragon Ball Z, I'm not talking about Kid Buu or Super Buu or any of his variations. I'm talking about the first Majin Buu we were ever introduced to, or Mr. Buu as he is referred to at the end of Dragon Ball Z. As a matter of fact, this isn't the same Buu. He is a little weaker than he was against Super Saiyan 3 Goku because he lost the evil portion that was a little stronger. But I still think that Buu is stronger than Oob, and when you add combat experience and his magic into the equation, I think Buu comes out on top. Now, the top 3 strongest characters in Dragon Ball Z is not debatable. These are the top 3, but my order is what some of you may disagree with. So at number 3, I have Vegeta. Vegeta is arguably the smartest fighter in the entire series and manages to keep up regardless of others around him constantly getting opportunistic boosts. Goku works hard for sure, but naturally he gets special treatment because he is the main character. Gohan, on top of being arguably the most gifted fighter in the series, has also gotten 2 chances to have his potential unlocked. Goten and Trunks are gifted as well, and even though Piccolo works hard like Goku, 2 of the times where he was the strongest Z fighter wasn't even through training but through fusion. Vegeta was never the strongest Z fighter in Dragon Ball Z and was never given any strength either, yet still finds himself top 3 on this list. In the 10 years after Kid Buu's defeat, I assume that as a Super Saiyan 2, Vegeta and Goku rival each other in strength. And even though the transformation isn't very useful while alive, Goku still has Super Saiyan 3 at his disposal and could use that to win against Vegeta, and that is why I have Goku at number 2 on this list. So at this point, I'm sure you figured out who I have at number 1, and it's Gohan. Now, depending on certain assumptions, Gohan and Goku can switch places. For Goku, we know for a fact that he does not stop training, so he is unquestionably stronger than he was at the end of the Buu saga. And then for Gohan, I can say with like 90% certainty that he didn't really train during the 10 years after the Buu saga. In the time of peace, he's sure to focus on his studies. But the difference between the 10 years after the Buu saga and the 7 years after the Cell games is that Gohan got his potential unlocked. Forget Dragon Ball Super, this list doesn't acknowledge Dragon Ball Super's existence. When it was introduced, Ultimate Gohan was the peak of his power. Elder Kai's ability allowed Gohan to use his latent power at its highest level. And when we saw Gohan fight Super Buu, he embarrassed him without even trying. Now we know Super Saiyan 3 Goku had absolutely no chance against Super Buu, so here's how I look at it. Because Gohan had his potential unlocked, I don't think he got weaker in the 10 years after Buu. Maybe his fighting sense had dulled, but I don't think his actual power went down. And if that's the case, the only way for Goku to be above Gohan is to be a Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks level of power stronger, which I don't see being the case. The only time we saw Gohan struggle was when Super Buu absorbed Gotenks and Piccolo, and for Goku to win against Gohan, he'd have to have a similar level of power. But on the other hand, if you think that Gohan's strength declined in the 10 years after Buu, then Goku should be number 1, and then you can argue about 2 and 3. Ranking these characters took way more assumption than for the characters in Dragon Ball Super, and you probably want to hear my thoughts on that, so click the video on the screen. But with that being said, this is BigTune, and thanks for watching. Y'all have a good one.